Hey everyone, in today's episode, I interview Meya Mansu, a former wedding photographer and author, about her journey from success to loss and transformation. Meya shares her experience in the wedding photography industry, working with her daughters, and transitioning to writing and coaching. She provides some tips for starting a successful wedding photography business, defines long term success in business, and discusses the impact of personal loss on her approach to coaching. Mia also offers some advice on reclaiming passion and purpose after loss, finding business opportunities in unexpected places, and strategies for business success in general. She talked about the importance of choosing the right clients and shared some insights on self publishing if you're ever interested in publishing a book. This was a very insightful and personal conversation with somebody that has been successful in different arenas. And I know you can find some great tips to apply directly into your business from this conversation. Let's dive in. Welcome to the Accidental CEO podcast, where we bridge the gap between the creativity you love and the CEO mindset you need. I'm your host, Nata Salvatori, wedding photographer and business educator. Find full show notes and resources at accidentalceopod.com. Let's get into today's episode. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Accidental CEO podcast. Today I have Meya Mansu with me today, and she is a former wedding photographer and former owner of the Stage and Studio, and also a multi-book author. So we're going to be talking a little bit about just being successful, having a successful career, and how it can quickly change and be interrupted by life. How to focus on transforming yourself and kind of continuing to move forward and rise back to success after that. So welcome, Maya.
Thank you.
So tell us just a little bit about your current state. What are you working on, who you are, where you are in the world, and then we're going to step back into the past a little bit and come back forward.
So right now I am located just outside of Portland, Maine in the US. And right now I'm focusing on helping people. It sounds like two different things, but really it's very, very connected. I published a book last December called Living Intentionally After Loss. And that's about helping people reclaim their passion and their purpose. Grief has a way of getting in the way of a lot of things in life. And then the second book that I published in January of this year is called Navigating the Small Business Path, Doing What You Love and Earning Your Dream Life. And really what I focus on is helping people who have had major upset in their life. A death of someone they loved, could be loss of a relationship, loss of a job. And I help them get back to their passion and purpose. And then if they want to take that passion and purpose and create a small business from it, I can help them do that as well.
Very nice. So let's go back a little bit. I want to hear about your wedding photographer career first. So tell us about that.
Absolutely. In 2003, it was very much a turning point in my life. I was working for a large software company, had the corner office, had all the people working for me, had the great paycheck. But I had just lost my dad. My mother-in-law was terminally ill. I was working like 80 to 100 hours a week and dealing with situations that were very, very stressful. And I thought there has to be more to life than this. So I thought, I'm going to take a leap of faith. I'm going to take the summer off and spend it with my two daughters that were 12 and 14 at the time. And I had fallen in love with photography and particularly weddings because I had photographed some family weddings. So I took the leap and it was amazing. You know, I did a lot of research about what couples were looking for. I set up my pricing and my packages so that they were fair to me, but also fair to the couples. Told everyone I talked to I was brand new in business, but that I had a plan. And I had 18 weddings that first summer. And it just grew over 9 years. We photographed about 250 weddings. And both of my daughters ended up joining me in the business, which was amazing. And I learned a lot about being an entrepreneur and a lot about marketing and a lot about how to really ebb and flow with what the customers were looking for.
Yeah, you have a very unique experience working with your daughters in your business. How was the dynamics of that?
I had no expectation that they would want to join me. I mean, I did the photography business for myself, but like any solopreneur, if I was prepping stuff for bridal shows, I would pull them in. And I think when Lindsay was about 2 years in, when Lindsay was 16, I was photographing a friend's wedding. And I said, hey, why don't you come with me? Because she knew my friend as well. I'm going to put a camera in your hand and you can carry my camera bags. And it was so amazing how good she was at it, how much she loved it. But I would say that probably one of the most telling things about my relationship with my girls throughout this was one day I had this bride and her mom come to my home office. And the bride did not want a photographer at all, very against it. And so the mom was hiring me. It was a very tense conversation to navigate the waters of who wanted what and what was okay. And then they got in their car and left, and I got my car and left because we were going to go see the wedding venue. And about 10 minutes out, my older daughter calls me and says, Mom, she said, I just want you to know that I could hear the conversation you were having. And I want you to know that you did an amazing job, like navigating that. And I
Oh,
just I had such a proud mother moment because I have a great relationship with my children, but to take it and have a whole new aspect to it was amazing. And my older daughter ended up studying small business and entrepreneurship in college. She was on the bleeding edge of social media. She was being asked to go talk to the Rotary groups about how to use social media in businesses. Both of my girls ended up with just a vastly different life experience because of it.
how amazing to be able to share that with
Yes.
them. Very, very nice. So your journey from successful wedding photographer to an author and business coach, it's very inspiring. Lots of great things there to unpack. Can you share how the transition from photography to writing and coaching kind of came about?
So I started my business in 2003, and 9 years later, my older daughter was my business partner. We were doing all kinds of wonderful things. She had just gotten married when she was diagnosed with leukemia. And once I had to spend time with her in the hospital, everything else stopped. And she passed away 3 months after she was diagnosed. And I really had to think about how I would handle wedding photography after that because she had just gotten married. You know, I I literally sat in a chair and sobbed for 2 months after she died. And so when I started to think about what is my purpose? Why am I still here? The thought of being at someone else's wedding and being able to not be just absolutely devastated, I just couldn't even imagine that world. So I ended up actually shutting down both that business and another small business that had presented itself along the way. And I had to take time to healing and grief. Now, my daughter was always really well connected with how the ways of the universe. And while she was in the hospital dying, it was after we had stopped treatment and before she had passed away. She was laying in her bed one day and she says to me, Mom, she said, can you pull out your iPad? And I said, sure. So I pulled it out and I said, Lindsay, what do you need? And she said, I need you to write down the list of books you're going to write for me because I'm not going to get to them before I die. And she wanted me to write survivor guides of how to make it through high school, how to make it through being a young adult, like helpful how to's, like the tips and techniques that I had learned. So then she passed away and I had this list of books and I could hear her in my head about 5 months after she died. Mom, time's ticking and you haven't started writing yet. And I'm kind of like, I am not there yet. but I do love to write. And I've actually published 4 books now, 2 of them grief related, one business related specific to the wedding industry or the photography industry, and then a second, a more general small business. And I think of them in part as part of her legacy as well.
That's very nice. What a great gift that she gave you too. Yeah.
Yes.
So, in the Photographer's Focus book, you offer some tips on creating a successful wedding photography business. Can you share maybe one or two key tips that you believe are very crucial to anyone starting in this field without giving the whole book away? Just one or two main things there.
I have 2 short stories. The first one is networking is so crucial, like networking with other people that can connect you to the couples getting married. And I had joined a business networking international BNI networking group, and I had picked one that had a wedding florist and an event planner and a wedding band and a wedding invitation person. So I thought I was setting myself up for great success with that. And it turns out that I would get booked before they would use most of the other services. So I could refer to them, but by the time they got the couples, they already had a photographer. So they were not referring back to me. However, I had one person in that networking group, the last person I would have expected, who regularly referred me. And it was the exterminator. Now, it's not obvious, but he would go to the wedding venues and he would create a relationship with the wedding venues as he was doing the extermination. And he would say, "Hey, I know this great wedding photographer. Would you be willing to meet with her and just see what she does?" They would say, "Absolutely." So then I would make an appointment and go in and show them my stuff. And about half the time, they would put me on their preferred vendor list. If not that, they would keep my information in case there was a bride having trouble finding someone. So I would say, who do you know and why do you know them? When you're networking, don't just think, I need to talk to people about weddings. It's who knows the people where the couples are. The second tip has little to do with photography, but has everything to do with customer service. And that is, as I started doing weddings, I'm at every wedding, a wedding every weekend, and somebody's like, "Hey, does anybody have scissors? Does anybody have a comb? Does anybody have a safety pin?" And so every time I heard somebody ask for something that no one had, I started putting it into my camera bag. So I was like Mary Poppins with her bag, and just, some every weekend something would get pulled out of my bag that had nothing to do with photography, but would save the day in a very small yet very important way. And I actually booked weddings because some of the family and some of the bridesmaids would be like, "Oh my God, like you were so amazing to have at the wedding. You were a calming influence. We loved having you be part of that day in an intimate way." It cost me nothing to do that. So the more you can think about how can you be of service and add value in the simplest of ways, the more you will get people's attention, for sure.
Yeah, isn't that amazing? I just told a story maybe a couple podcasts ago. I just had a wedding a few weeks ago where I was helping one of the bridesmaids get dressed because she had some complex
Yes.
design on her dress, and it was on the back, and obviously everybody else was putting their dress on, so nobody was available to help her. So I offered to help and realized one of the loops of her dress was actually, it came undone. It broke. So there I go to my emergency kit, grab, needle and thread and start fixing her dress. And she just could not believe it that I was doing that. It was such a surprise for her that I would do something that had nothing to do with photography, which is what I was there to do. And she kept telling everyone all night long. If she saw me and there is a person standing by me, she would tell them the story of how amazing of a photographer I am because I threw her dress. Nothing to do with my pictures. Nothing to do with the service that I was hired to do. Everything to do with great customer service and giving people a great experience. So
That part of it goes so much further than we think. And I think sometimes even than we realize. I would carry sewing kits and bobby pins and safety pins. I would carry extra large umbrellas in my car, and guests kept taking them. So eventually I got them with my logo on it, and they made amazing photos.
I gave my shoes to a mother of the groom that broke her broke her shoe right before she had to walk down the aisle. So it's the little things that we do to, just go above and beyond for our clients that really get noticed way beyond any beautiful picture that you're gonna take on that wedding day. So definitely a great lesson for any business owners out there. So, on your second book, The Navigating the Small Business Path, you talk about a guide for long term success in business. How do you define long term success, and what are some of the foundational steps to achieve it?
I think that most small business owners would define success in terms of the money they make. And I will never argue that making money is important, but that's not how I would define success. I would define success as it's the journey, right? It's the journey of being an entrepreneur. It's appreciating where you're at. It's appreciating what you need to learn and what you can teach others. It's about the human touch. I define long-term success is an alignment between three parts of the business. The first part is the problem, and that's the who or the what that you're solving. And here we're talking specifically about wedding photography. Like that's the problem that you're solving for people, the service you provide. And obviously, your direct customers are the couple who's getting married. But you also need to think about all the indirect customers, right? When I would go into a wedding, every single person that was attending the wedding was in a way an indirect customer, because if I could capture the memories that they all made together that day, then they were all like, I loved them all. The second main part is your passion for doing it, or that's the why of your business, right? If you hate weddings, don't be a wedding photographer. If you
Amen.
hate young kids, don't be a child photographer. Pick who you love. If who you are passionate about helping and what you're passionate about photographing isn't in alignment with what you're offering, long term it's not going to be successful. And then think about how it is you're offering it. That's the last part, the plan of action. It's the where, the when, and the how. So if you can come up with a solution that with all of that in alignment, you're going to have long-term success.
Absolutely. I really like the three concepts that you put together, kind of the recipe to long term success. So, I really, really like that. Today's episode of the Accidental CEO podcast is sponsored by the ultimate all-in-one lab for professional photographers, Miller's Professional Imaging. They are the largest professional lab organization in the United States. And for more than 50 years, Miller's has provided the highest quality products, customer service, and technologies in the industry, which have contributed to becoming the preferred lab of photographers nationwide. Miller's is my number one choice when it comes to products for my clients. Everybody loves the quality and the speedy delivery. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Let's get back to it. Yeah, the loss of your daughter and business partner in 2013 was really a pivotal moment in your life, and you mentioned that. How has this personal part of your life, influence your approach to business and just life coaching in general?
After my daughter died, she was so vibrantly alive, and she was so passionate about small business and entrepreneurship. And had she lived, I can't even imagine where she would be now. Like, I just think she would be the one doing these podcasts, and she would be brilliant at it. I mean, brilliant. So when she died, the mantra that kept going through my head is, why am I still here when she is not? What is my purpose? Like, what is my profound or sacred purpose that I'm here and I'm still alive to fulfill? And it was a choice of, do I follow that passion and the purpose, or do I sit in a chair and cry? And my daughter would have been the first one to kick me out of that chair and say, get going. That had a profound impact because I now want to work with people who are very purpose driven, who feel that they have, there's some impact they want to have on this world. And I want to help them be able to do that.
Yeah, it's a great way to kind of tie in something you went through and find the time to find purpose again by incorporating that, not ignoring it and putting it under the rug and not talking about it ever again, but incorporating that in how you move forward.
Yes.
Very, very nice. So, in the Living Intentionally After Loss book, you explore the steps of kind of reclaiming that passion and purpose that you were just talking about. So, what is one step that you found that was the most transformative in your journey towards healing and living intentionally again?
There were two pivotal moments. The first one was very small, and that was a friend of mine approached me at about the 2 month point after she died. And she said, I know that you think you will never be okay again. She said, but if you continue to believe that, it will become true. I need you to switch that to, I will be okay someday, just not today. And that opened the door for me to allow myself to give myself permission to move forward. But the thing I think that had the most impact was the intentional part of living intentionally. And that is to choose 5 to 10 words about how you want to feel when you go to bed at the end of every day. And if you've made all the decisions according to getting you closer to the way you want to feel, you're going to feel that when you go to bed at night. It changes how you make decisions. It really does. Because if I live a want-based life, I'm going to be thinking, well, I need to make this much money to get this house or this car or go on this vacation, and I'm going to make decisions based on trying to get to those material things in my life. But if I want to focus on how do I want to feel at the end of the day, I'm going to make decisions a little differently. And not only for myself, but if you are in business, create those feeling words for how you want your clients to feel at the end of the day. Because you're going to make decisions differently about what you offer and how you offer it if you have a specific focus on how you want your clients to feel.
Yeah, I really like that. That's a great thing to focus on, how you want your clients to feel at the end of the experience with you. What do you want them to carry on into their lives? How do you want them to transform? We had a guest talking about the transformation that you cause with the services that you offer, and so how you want them to transform after working with you. So we talked about the story of how that staging studio was born, and I feel like that's really a testament to seeing some opportunities in expected places and taking advantage of it. What is your advice for entrepreneurs on staying open and responsive to those new business opportunities?
So the staging studio came out of the blue. I mean, I helped a family member sell their house at probably the worst point at the end of 2008 in the housing crisis here in the US. I did it to help them try and lose the least amount of money that they could. And their house had been in really rough shape. The family pitched in. We cleaned it, we painted, I brought in small scale furniture, and because it was a small house, and we staged it, and then I took photos. And the realtor had seen it kind of at its worst. We brought her back just before we put it on the market. We said, what else? And she did a great job. She went through the whole house with a straight face and said, nope, this is lovely. Yep, this is lovely. The house got put on the market. Nothing was moving, and that house sold in 3 days for the asking price. It was priced according to the market, but it still moved instantly. And about 2 weeks later, she called me and she said, so that staging you did for your relatives, will you do that for other people? And I was like, yes, yes. I mean, I never really thought about it before that moment, but I thought, yes, there must be a way that I can do that for other people, not in the same way that I did it for my relatives, not that hands on. But what it turned into was we would go in, we would do an action plan with the homeowner. we give them all the advice on how to stage their home. They could take it and run with it, or they could ask us for additional help. And I already had the photography going at that point. So I asked a friend of mine who had an interior painting business, and the two of us teamed up. And we never advertised. The word spread realtor to realtor. The realtors were the one that hired us to go in and do the initial action plan. Like, they paid us because they saw it as a way to set themselves apart from other realtors, as this was a service they would provide. And within 3 years, we were not only going in and helping people who had a house full of stuff, but we had probably 8 houses worth of furniture that we would rent and go and stage houses with.
What a way to see opportunity and, when it presents itself to you, but also not be afraid to say yes and then kind of figure it out as you went a little bit and just jump into this new adventure, in this new career too. Plus, combining, you probably used some of your skills from being a photographer, understanding, what is easy to the eye and composition and how to declutter spaces. So I'm sure there was some transferable skills to that too.
Absolutely.
So through your varied career, you had a significant success in both the photography world and the home staging business. What are some common strategies and principles that you apply to both of those ventures to really ensure that your business was successful?
I think just following your passion, following your interests. I was passionate about photography, and I loved the process of doing in weddings, and I had no idea what I was getting into in that first business. I think the biggest common thread with everything I've ever done is, if you are so passionate about something that you're willing to go learn what you don't know. There's so many things that I didn't know when I started my own business, that there's a camaraderie in the small business world, that other people are so willing to help you. You just have to ask. I think that's what I love about what I do now, is like, people want to go follow their passion, but they don't know. Sometimes they don't know what they don't know. And they need someone to be like, hey, have you thought of this? What if you go this way? Here's a different perspective to look at it. If you are open to navigating that path of pulling in the help that you need and the learning what you need, I think that's really the biggest key to being successful.
I think it's, a lot of us tend to just do what's easier sometimes, right? To take that job that's maybe right in front of you because that's what is expected instead of really taking the time to have a clear vision and what you would like to do and how you like to shape your path moving forward. So definitely following your passion. It's something that is important and it will give you more fulfillment at the end of the day. Going through those hard moments of doing whatever you like, it's always easier to go through that knowing that at the end of the day you have something that you really love and you're passionate about. So, we talked a little bit about your ideal client, people that you like to work with. So, you talked about people that experience loss and are seeking to find their purpose. What is the initial advice that you can give to those individuals in that kind of situation to help them start their path to find and fulfill their purpose again?
The absolute key is trusting yourself. We all let life push us around a little bit. We all make life choices, and they lead us down a path. And sometimes that path gets to the point where we're not comfortable with it. And it doesn't mean that what you're doing right now isn't right. But if it's not settling well with your soul, if you're not content in what you're doing, or if you feel like something's missing, the way I think of it is you're getting nudged to kind of get back to the path that is more authentically you. That sounds a little corny perhaps, but if you're just not happy with what you do, it impacts everything in your life. Daring to follow your passion can seem really scary. I had worked really hard to get my career to a point when I just I quit the day job to spend a summer with my kids and spend time with my family and try the photography. I knew that I may, when I quit, I quit with the plan of, well, I may have a great summer and have to go get another job in the fall, but I want to do this dare. I want to dare myself to step out of where I've ended up. It was the biggest leap of faith I have ever taken. I'm so grateful that I did, because the last 9 years of my daughter's life, I got to spend so close to her in a way I never would have if I hadn't taken that leap of faith. So trust yourself is the best advice I could give. If you are feeling pulled to do something different or to follow a passion, take a chance.
Do it. Yes. So, having self published multiple Amazon #1 bestseller books, what insight can you give to people that are thinking about self publishing? What does that process look like, especially if they want to share maybe some personal stories or professional expertise like you have done in your books?
I think it's the same challenge in writing a book as it is in creating a small business. Who are you trying to help, and what are you trying to help them do? Now, if you simply want to publish memoirs and stories to inspire other people, that's one thing. But the people who are going to get your book, what you have to ask yourself, what is it that they are looking for in my book or in my stories? They're looking for inspiration. They're looking for a solution to something in themselves. And inspiration is a solution to someone searching for inspiration. But the more you can get to frame it around a very basic human need, the more people will want to read your book. And it's the same with a business, right? If I said, hey, like after my daughter died, like creating peace in my life was so important. But if I said, I'm going to write a book, tell my story, and say, hey, go create peace for yourself, not many people are going to look for that. Whereas living intentionally after loss, I can still tell my stories, but I can tell them how I went through it, what I did, and in my case, what I've worked with others to help them do. So the more you can get to fulfilling a human need in some way, the more you're going to have success getting that book out there.
Basically, do your research and see what's needed, what are people looking for, where is the gap, just like any other business. Like you said, it is a very big correlation in offering a service that's needed versus offering something that nobody's really looking for. So,
Yeah, the second's more of a hobby. Yes.
right? So, in the spirit of going from an accidental CEO to a purposeful business owner, there's definitely failure that happens along the way that becomes part of that success. What is maybe a big failure that happened with you in one of your businesses that became a big lessons learned for you?
I had the one bride. I should never have, like, I knew it when we were talking before I signed the contract that I wasn't the right photographer for her, but I didn't listen to myself. Somewhere out there floating is about a 2,700 word essay about what a horrible photographer I am, how my daughter should never have been included. And what I will say is that I've never worked so hard to try and please someone, but for a lot of reasons, she blamed us for her family not being a part of her wedding day in the way that she wanted. And like, I get that. I get that. I think that choosing your clients, most people, they go into business and they're like, I'll say, well, who do you serve? They're like, everyone. And I'm like, no, you don't. You don't serve everyone. Like, who do you serve? What makes, if I look back across the 250 weddings, there's 5 or 10 of them that are like, oh, Those people were so dear to my heart. The vast majority were great. And I had one. I'll say I had two challenging weddings. And the challenges had nothing to do with me. Really being clear about who you serve, how you serve them, and being willing to say to a potential client, even one who's willing to pay you a lot of money, it is not worth the money if you end up giving it back, if you end up getting the 2,700 word essay online. There's just, I don't know, just trust yourself and be really clear about who you want to serve. And don't be afraid to say, no, I'm not going to accept you as a client.
Absolutely. That saves a lot of headache.
It does.
Well, yeah, working with the wrong client costs you not only money, but your time and other things that are valuable
Your
to you.
reputation.
So,
And once that's gone, it's hard to get it back.
Meya, thank you so much for sharing all these great insights with us. Tell everybody where can they find you if they want to learn more about your books, which we will link it for you. But if they want to get some inspiration from you or just learn more about what you're working on.
Sure. I actually give away my books for free on my website in exchange for your email, of course. The Living Intentionally After Loss is shecreatespeace.com/free book. And Navigating the Small Business Path is thesmallbusinesspath.com/free book. And the photographer's one is a little bit longer, but I will send that one to you as well.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for spending this time with me, sharing your personal stories and your successes and your ups and downs with us. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that can relate and use a lot of the strategies and the advice that you shared today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for listening to this episode of the Accidental CEO podcast. We'll see you again next week. Bye. And that's a wrap for today's episode of the Accidental CEO podcast. Thanks for hanging out with us in the world where creativity and business strategy collide. I am Nata Salvatori, thrilled to have shared this time with you. Remember, every episode is a step closer to mastering the art of being an accidental CEO. So don't miss out. Hit subscribe, drop us a sweet review, and spread the word to your creative tribe. Your next big breakthrough could be just one episode away. Join us next time for more insights, laughs, and actionable tips. Keep pushing boundaries, dreaming big, and embracing the beautiful chaos of entrepreneurship. Here's to make magic happen in your business and beyond.